Thank you so much for everyone that's here. This is the biggest crowd I've had in a while. I'm very flattered by it, and I appreciate that. And I wanted to thank everybody that's helped me out by buying a coffee as well this week. There was a lot of you, and then some small donations, and using my affiliate links, and you don't have to do any of that. I mean, just hitting the like button or subscribing to the channel is also a big thank you from you. I appreciate that. So as always, I do the streams, I come on, I try to answer your questions about Olympus cameras and the workspace software, and talk about photography in general and what's new this week, and do my best to kind of just catch up, right? And there was some big you should not pretend to be a super technical smart astronaut. I like that. I have this thing up behind me because I was doing something else just for fun with like another client. Actually, I was live streaming with a client with this. There, how's that? Turn that off. Get a little more serious, right? What was I saying? Yeah, so let me I kind of slept on all the news from yesterday because a lot of people, news being that Olympus is talking about selling their imaging division off to JIP, Japanese Industry Partners or something. And I watched a lot of the videos from everyone online, and the usual clickbait ones, and then the usual good ones from like Peter and Robin and Jimmy. Jimmy had a great live stream as well yesterday, which I watched and I really enjoyed. And everybody in the Micro Four Thirds community is they're good people, generally speaking, online, the YouTubers online and everything. So that's something I think I'm really happy to be a part of, and so, but there's always that concern, right, when companies get sold or sell pieces of their company. I think in this case, and I have to preface this by it's my own opinion and time will tell, right? And as most of you know, I'm a fully independent person. I've never been sponsored by Olympus or any company for that matter. I come online, do the best I can, but my personal opinion is I think this is a good thing for the imaging division, because Olympus Corporation, as a whole, was struggling to make the camera division work, right? And and it's obvious to a lot of longtime Olympus fanboys like myself that every camera that's come out in the last year, they could have done better in some ways, right? They did a great job, and I love their cameras. And they certainly, on the marketing side here, is in the US has always been lackluster. They always got the tiniest shelf, if they got a shelf at all, at Best Buy. There would only be 1 or 2 cameras on the shelf from Olympus, and and there wasn't a lot of events. They just started to crank the events up, though, just before the pandemic hit. I was starting to see a lot more live events from Olympus being hosted by their visionaries and ambassadors, etc., here in the US, which I think could have really made a difference, at least short term, to their marketing efforts. But of course, with what happened, that got squashed along with a lot of other things. And it's and nothing's done yet, right? To me, I look at Olympus, their cameras, that's their baby, right? Olympus as a company, the camera division is kind of their baby, and it's what people mostly know them for, at least at the consumer level. And if it were me, my company, I would have a hard time selling it. But ultimately, you have to answer to your investors, And rather than close the business down or phase it out, they wanted to continue the legacy best they can by selling it to another company that promises to carry that legacy on and continue development and make Olympus all that it can be, at least the cameras and lenses, right? So and the way Olympus has always worked with the different divisions in their companies, and I'm basing this off another video I saw about their scandal when they were going down, but the reporting in that video was that they treat the individual divisions almost like separate companies anyway, and the individual companies were doing very well at the time, but then that scandal hit, right, with the CEOs and board of directors or whatever was going on that had nothing to do with the individual companies. So the Olympus Imaging division is a separate company within a company, and that piece is now just getting a new owner. Instead of Olympus Corporation, it's going to be Japan Industries, either in whole or majority. Because I did a little research or skimming on the JIP, or Japanese Industrial Partners, I think is their name. And the one everyone always cites is they took over Sony's Vaio laptop, which I actually own one from 2012 that I still use almost daily. 2012 laptop by Sony Vaio. But they've bought other companies that I looked into to see how they were doing since they took over, and the ones that I could find information on, they were doing well, at least from a consumer standpoint. If you go to their websites and look at what they're doing, and they're mostly Japanese companies, you would have no impression at all that there was any problems with that company more than any other company is having because of what's going on. Like Hitachi is a good example. They have a majority share of Hitachi, and they bought parts of NEC, and they've actually bought a division from Olympus back in 2012, I believe. I believe it's called ITX. They bought a little piece of Olympus business because that was back when Olympus was having that financial trouble. But like I was saying, the individual companies under Olympus's umbrella were doing okay, but they had to generate some revenue and get some cash back, so they sold off one of their pieces already back then. And I wasn't able to find any info on that company. But looking at a more recent example, I guess Sony Vaio, something that's more consumer level, it looks like what Japan Industries did. And think about it, Sony, right? If you were into Sony laptops, just like people are into cameras, you would not have any, you would never guess that they would sell that piece off, right, to anybody. Because Sony's a huge corporation, they have the resources to make things work, but for whatever reason, they sold that piece off to Japan Industries. And Sony Vaio is primarily sold in Japan. They pulled out of the US market altogether. So they consolidated the company mostly to sell laptops in Japan, and they're still selling current competitive laptops. I looked at some of the specs and I'm like, those aren't bad. The Japanese market, laptop market, is a little bit different than the US, so that the laptops are marketed more for, I guess, what their consumers want, which are very small, powerful laptops, which is what they were when Sony is, which is what I bought. I bought a very compact, I bought a 14-inch Sony Vaio with a touchscreen and pen. And if you guys seen my videos where I use the whiteboard in my videos, I use my Sony Vaio for that, because it has a pen support. But they basically shrunk the range of products on the Vaio laptops down to just a few products, and made those specific ones very targeted towards small and light, you know, but well-made, powerful machines. And yeah, I am a little tired today, but anyway, Cornus, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to read the comments here. There's a lot, so but I just wanted to share my thoughts, and then I'll get to the comments. So, you know, but and by all accounts, you know, you look at the mission statement of the Japan Industries is to carve out pieces of other businesses from in Japan, and specifically Japanese companies, and restructure them so that they perform better. And that restructuring can mean anything, right? Whether it's downsizing and focusing on specific products, and reinvesting more into the areas that they felt there was a gap, like in marketing, right? Because they have access to a lot of resources, because they're a private investment equity firm, and they have a lot of resources. You know, you don't get into that kind of business without having a lot of resources, right? To pull money from different investors, but also resources in terms of expertise. And I think that I think, and like I said, time will tell, but I really hope that Japan Industries makes a very concerted effort to make Olympus cameras and lenses all that they could be and what we've always wanted. You know, up to this point, they've always been great, and I think the cameras and lenses have been exceptional at meeting the targets that they wanted to meet. That Olympus vision was to make small, compact cameras that were rugged and still give you very high quality and packed full of features. And they're keeping, and you know, the other statement was that they're going to keep the all the employees. And I'm sorry, let me back up. The statement was that from Olympus was that they're going to continue to develop and release products as planned. And that makes complete sense, right? Because you don't sell a company and then screw the person that's buying it, right? By slashing everything and cutting everything and destroying the customer base before the new company takes over. So if anything, Olympus is going to ramp up and work even harder between now and when the new company takes over to release products and do the best they can, so that when they hand this over to the new company, they have a more stable or better company than when they originally, like today, what they're talking about today. And I can talk to this from my own personal experience, where, and this was probably 3 years ago, where I was, you know, consulting with a very small company about, and he was getting older and he wants to retire, about buying a new building to move his business into, because where he was operating from now is like a 20-30-year-old building, and he was having year over year growth in revenue and profit and everything from that location. There was no need for him to move from that location at all. But he wanted to move to a new location, into a newer, fancier building, with the intent to sell the business, because he wants whoever takes over to be impressed with the business, not just in the financials, because the financials were solid, but to walk in and visually have this beautiful Class A building with, you know, all new amenities and things like that in it. Because he was in a Class C building before, more industrial, but he wanted to move to a Class A office building with the intent to sell it, right? And try to get even more money for it, because it was a nicer building. And so when I think back about how Olympus moved their manufacturing out of China into Vietnam, built a brand new facility. You know, when I saw that, you know, when that announcement came out a year or two ago, I was like, man, this sounds very familiar to what I experienced in my own, you know, work life with businesses trying to make their businesses bigger and shiny, right? Nice and shiny on the outside so that they can sell it later. So ever since I heard that they moved their manufacturing to Vietnam, it's always been in the back of my mind, are they doing that to make the business look more attractive because they got brand new facilities and more expertise and you know, things like that, right? I So all I can say is I was a little surprised at the news, but I'm not shocked, and I'm not worried too much based on what I know about business in general, from my experience, because a lot of times the person taking over the business, especially when Olympus has just recently invested into new factories and all kinds of things, um, you know, they're not a chop shop, as we call it here in the US, right? Where they buy things and divide and conquer and sell the pieces for more money than what they paid. You know, because the Olympus brand itself is very valuable. And, you know, you look at companies like Kodak, you know, they still make film, but it's not Kodak anymore, right? It's owned by some Chinese company, I think. I don't know who owns it, but, you know, they released some Kodak cameras, and they're very mediocre cameras, right? They even released a Micro Four Thirds camera from Kodak, which was kind of interesting. But this is not the case with JIP, right? They're not just buying the Olympus brand from Olympus. They're buying the manufacturing facilities. They're taking on all the employees, and they're going to restructure to some extent, right? Hopefully primarily in the marketing side, and then invest more money into what they think is going to be work based on market research. And I really believe deep down that this new company is going to really bring the best out of Olympus and give us all what we really want from Olympus, right? Year after year. Because since 2015 and 16, you know, every camera that's come out, people are always, you know, a little bit let down, right? Just slightly, for whatever reason. And I get it. You know, EM5 Mark III, plastic body. It works for me, but a lot of Olympus hardcore enthusiasts were like, you know, they wanted a metal body. The EM1 Mark III comes out, including myself. I wanted a better viewfinder, right? EVF. Maybe a better LCD plate, but they basically recycled parts from the EM1 and then improved the guts inside. But there was still, you know, there's in-camera charging, and but you can't like charge the camera and use it at the same time like every phone in the market. And most cameras you cannot charge and use at the same time. It's one or the other. So there's nothing less about the M1 Mark III in that regard. It's not less featured in that respect, but they could have innovated and said, let's make it charge and usable at the same time, right? But, you know, those are some examples of when Olympus has released a camera and they haven't really did all they can do, unlike when they went from the M1 Mark I to the M1 Mark II. Huge step, right? 2015, 2016, I think, was sort of the pinnacle of Olympus cameras. And that's why I have that video about the Mark II series in 2020 is still the best. And I still believe that. Yeah, the M1 Mark III, M10 Mark III, great cameras, no question. More features than what came out in the Mark II. But they weren't leaps ahead like they were back in 2015 and 16. You know, those were substantial improvements. And that's what I hope to get out of this new acquisition from Japan Industries is, you know, for them to really say, you know, what made Olympus great, you know, in the past, and what mistakes did Olympus make recently, and let's you know, get rid of the bad and keep the good. So that could mean there's going to be less cameras in the lineup, most likely, right? For example, you know, I don't see a need for an EM5 series. You know, just beef up the EM10 a little bit, make it weather sealed, or not, really, and then have the EM1. I mean, I love the EM5 for all it has, but I don't see a need for both, personally. That's a little bit too much segmentation for me. You know, they could have a great EM10, pack all the features in the EM10, same as they put in EM1s, but just have different body styles. And then, you know, I'm afraid that halo cameras like the Pen F, you know, are gonna go away. I don't see them really. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the numbers were for the original Pen F. You know, the only statements you've ever heard from Olympus is it did as expected. Well, what does that mean? You know, I don't know. uh, and again, it's just my I'm just kind of rambling a little bit, my thoughts on that, because you know, what would a business do potentially? And this is again all speculation. But I don't think we really have anything to worry about, especially in the near term, because Olympus is going to do everything they can, as long as they're the owners trying to sell it, to make it as attractive as possible for the new owners to buy it. Because the buyers can back out anytime. They can say, you know what? Why did you kill off the launch of this lens? Why did you kill off the launch of this camera? You know, your customer base is shrinking as it is. You're making it worse. You know, we don't want it. You know, we don't want it. You know, they can walk away. But so Olympus, if they really want to sell it, they will do their best to continue releasing lenses, supporting their current customer base, and making and hand over as clean and shiny a product as they can to the buyer. You know, this is not like a liquidation or an auction where you don't care and you just throw things around and the lowest bidder takes it. They're handing over their baby, literally, to another company to take care of and tender and grow, to be, you know, to continue the legacy, so to speak, right, of the Olympus brand. And that's my hope and wish. You know, time will tell. So but okay, so I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read all of the comments, so I'm gonna read a few now. And I see some comments here about blocking someone. I don't know if anybody was I didn't notice any scams or scam, whatever. Let's see. I'm gonna start here. From what I can see, I see let me just scroll up just a little bit. Looks like you guys were talking amongst yourself, which is good. Okay, here's one for me. Hi, robtrek. Do you remember the EM1 with the same sensor as the Pen F? I hope Xiaomi ends up buying Olympus. I'm from JIP, and Xiaomi could use Weiko lenses on his smartphones, I hope. Maybe. I think Xiaomi's a little bit too small to deal with buying Olympus. They're a tiny company. I mean, they got a few small cameras, and they failed miserably with the. I would be a little worried if Xiaomi bought them, to be honest, more so than JIP, because JIP has more of a broader view on industry in Japan, and I think they take pride in Japanese companies, and they want whatever they buy to do well and make it better. If I was Apple, I would have bought Olympus and made everything half price so they would be global. I don't know. Apple wants to make their own stuff. I have no doubts Olympus will be with us for quite some time to come. Xiaomi's main product is smartphones. Yeah, okay. I'm not that familiar with Xiaomi. I just know they made some 360 cameras, and they came out with that Yi thing. I seriously doubt a Chinese company will buy Olympus, or in the near future anyway. You know, Japanese are very proud people, right? They're very proud of their history and their legacy, and take pride in their work. And that's why I don't think Olympus is taking this very lightly. You know, I'm sure it was very painful to them, and to many dedicated Olympus employees there, right? That just love the camera division. But as you know, I've been saying this since day one. You know, ever since the rumor started back in 2018, if Olympus stops making cameras, it's okay. You know, in 2 or 3 years, I'll buy something else if I need to, you know, or buy another used one. I mean, it doesn't really change anything about as a photographer. It doesn't change anything for me. I'll just buy something else, like, you know. And I've tried a lot of different brands. I just ended up with Olympus. And again, if you guys know me, it wasn't that long ago, you know, when I bought the EM10 Mark II. It could have easily been a Panasonic at the time. They just didn't have the Panasonic I wanted on the shelf. They had an Olympus, so I said, oh well, let me look at the Olympus. You know, I didn't have any, and I said, well, this looks like a nice little camera. But then after I started using it, I was like, man, this is really an awesome little camera. I mean, I really liked it when I saw it, my first impression, but it wasn't what I went there to originally buy. And since then, you know, back 2016, 2017, when I really got into Olympus, you know, sort of like I said, the pinnacle of their cameras, I've just fallen in love with them, and they've continued to, you know, crank out excellent cameras. You know, sure, a few shortcomings here and there, but not anything that really affected what I do. A GoFundMe to buy Olympus. I don't think we want to do that. Yeah, I don't know if lowering the price would have saved them or gave them bigger market share. You know, it I don't know. I'm not in marketing. Who knows? Maybe a lower price would have done it. Because there's a lot of low price cameras, you know, like the Xiaomi Yi Mi or whatever that thing was very cheap Micro Four Thirds camera, and that was a total flop. Am I still using the M10? Not very much. Because I have so many cameras now. When I pick one up, I pick up the one that has, you know, I either pick up the M1 Mark III or the EM5 Mark III now, generally speaking. And the EM10, I only use really for supporting the YouTube channel. You know, if people have questions about it, because the EVF, the tech thing is broken on it, and the battery door is not right, and you know, it's seen a lot of use. Still works perfectly fine, but I don't use it much. And Nature says, I bought Ollie. Oh no, Sumit says, I bought Ollie, discovered your videos, but here's what tilted me in their favor. On the lowest end, they have chock full of features. Yeah, the M10 is awesome. I have a comment regarding processing power of EM1 Mark II. When doing quick series of L burst shots silent setting, the number of shots slows down. My fault. No, you need a faster memory card. So get I heard the Sony UHS-2 Tough card is really fast. I mean, they state the same speeds as everyone else, right? 300 megabits read and write. But in practice, I've heard people being able to shoot raw continuous with no slowdown at all. Now, silent setting, they will slow down, I imagine, because now you're shooting instead of at 10 frames per second or 15 frames per second, you can shoot a lot faster in silent mode. But I think if you get a UHS-2 card, that might help. If you're already using UHS-2 card, you know, then a newer UHS-2 card may help a little, if any. Enzo says, I purchased my first Olympus C. I assume you mean camera. Well, congratulations. I mean, they're awesome cameras. And for a lot of people that are just getting their EM1 Mark III or EM10 Mark, you know, if you just got an Olympus camera, I've heard a few people, man, my EM1 Mark III just came in today or it's coming in tomorrow. And they see all this doom and gloom news. And I'm like, let me tell you, don't worry. You got an awesome camera. And there's an awesome selection of lenses right now. This is not you're not an early adopter of a camera system. You know, this is a legacy system that has a huge selection of lenses and accessories and things and a huge database of people willing to help you, like myself and Peter and Robin. So if you just bought an Olympus camera and you're worried, don't worry. You're not an early adopter. It's not like the Nikon Z, right? Yeah, I'm sure it's doing fine, but if you bought a Nikon Z and there's only 2 lenses out for it, you're an early adopter. That's a little riskier than buying an Olympus right now, in my opinion. You know, just to kind of give you an example. Now, Randy's bidding on a D750. It's a great camera. I still have mine. Man, this scroll thing. Oh, hey, John. Softly is here. Yeah, I'm glad you can make it. He emailed me last night saying he might not be able to. It's really early there for him. Like, it's not even 6 o'clock in the morning yet for him. How long do digital cameras last? Did anybody have a camera which died? My EPM1. Yeah, generally, you know, they do last, I would say, easily 5 to 10 years. With gentle use, meaning, you know, they're not getting dropped constantly like mine. Like, don't ever buy a used camera from me, okay? I've dropped all of mine many times. Haven't dropped my EM1 Mark III yet. Almost did yesterday, but so it just depends on how it's cared for, really. Like, my EM10 is a wreck. I mean, it works, but don't buy one from me. But, you know, electronics do go bad eventually, right? The capacitors lose their ability to hold capacitance. You know, electronics in general. And, you know, professionals, the shutter can wear out, right? Because they go through, you know, hundreds of thousands of clicks. And eventually the shutter's going to wear out, or it gets to a point to where you're worried it's going to go out on you, right? Because they're rated, the EM1 Mark III is rated for 400,000 clicks, but, you know, professional can go through that in a couple of years, easy. It's the enthusiasts that fuel the camera market. Definitely enthusiasts, but I'd say even more so professional photographers drive the market. Even though they're the smallest part. I think I saw a video by Tony talking about that, where they showed the profitability between professional cameras and consumer level cameras. Yeah, in terms of volume, the consumer level is really high and generated tons of money, but the professional market generated the most profit. I don't know if that's per unit type profit or if that's overall profit for all sales. But the consumer market's gone to cell phones, basically. You know, so it's really just the enthusiasts that buy cameras anymore, interchangeable cameras. It used to be, before cell phones, you had to buy a camera if you wanted to take a picture, right? But since cell phones started taking pictures, decent pictures, that's where the consumers are at now. And that leap from your camera phone to a dedicated camera like EM10 or EM5, that's a pretty big leap for a lot of people, right? And the controls and everything are very intimidating. It's not really the right word, but they're very, very different than a camera phone or a smartphone. To use a real camera versus using the phone on your camera, so that leap, you know, from a cell phone consumer level, even if people are interested in photography, that leap to a camera is there's a learning curve there that a lot of people aren't willing to take. Because I've heard so many times people said, you know, this is too hard to use. It just doesn't fit my lifestyle. You know, I can't just carry it everywhere like I have my phone and yada yada yada. But before there were cell phone cameras, you had to buy a camera, and then you would it was an easy transition from, you know, from a basic camera to more advanced cameras, etc. But it's just a different market now. Hello, Rob. I bought a LX15, really small but interesting. I don't know what that is, an LX15. Is that an old Olympus? It sounds more like a Panasonic name. But good to see you, Siegfried. Always good to see you. Siegfried has an awesome blog as well. You should check out. Regarding the EM10, what is a viable upgrade path considering lenses and bodies? Now, how much would we invest now if there's no new bodies coming in the future? It really depends on your needs. I mean, the EM10 is an awesome, if it's the Mark 1 EM10, I would buy the EM5 Mark II. If it's the EM10 Mark II, I would get the EM1 Mark II. And you'll be set for the next, you know, 3-4 years, easy. The OM2 SP is the way to go. Yep. I still have mine. I took it out last year I need to take it out again. I took it out I bet there's still some film in it. It's up there on the shelf. But I haven't really gone out at all in the last 3 months. Would you upgrade from an EM10 II to an EM5 III after buying a 17-25 and a 40? Yeah. If you want better autofocus in low light and better continuous focus, not tracking, but continuous autofocus, you know, for sports action type things, yeah, the EM5 Mark III is a significant upgrade from the EM10. Not to mention the weather sealing and the video capabilities with the mic jack. And it has a slightly bigger EVF, so it's a little bit easier to see if your eyes are dying like mine. And so yeah, I think the M5 Mark III is an awesome deal, and wait for it to go on sale, because right now it goes for $9.99 all day long, but occasionally you'll see 20% off and get it for like under $800 on the Olympus refurb site, which they're practically brand new cameras. So if you can wait for an excellent deal. I got a feeling there's going to be some deals coming up. So just wait it out a little bit, you'll be okay. Let's see. The Jip made a killing with this purchase. I think Olympus would have put some... Oh, man. I lost my place here. It's so hard to... I just have to go to the bottom. I'm sorry, I accidentally skipped a question here. Okay, Tone Sharp says, Jip made a killing with this purchase. I think Olympus would have put some arrangements in place to protect their name and their cameras. You're right, Olympus cameras are a legacy. Yes. Bob Tishmar says, EM10 II or 3? Get the EM10 Mark II, unless you need 4K video. If you don't need 4K video, EM10 Mark II is a more capable camera, photographically speaking, if you're an enthusiast. If you're a beginner, and you're not a beginner, I've seen your pictures, Bob, so get the EM10 Mark II. But as for beginners, I would say EM10 Mark III is just as good an option as the EM10 Mark II, because you're not going to take advantage of all the little deep diving things that you can do in the M10 Mark II. You can really deep dive in the M10 Mark II menus and get to squeeze a little extra out of it in functionality. But for the beginner, the EM10 Mark III is a little bit easier to use. And then you have an upgrade path from there. I agree with Bob. I can't see potential buyer making more money selling it off piecemeal. Yeah. People who just bought an Olympus must remember that the average shutter life is 200,000 frames. Yeah, like I said, the EM1 Mark III is 400,000. Penny Ali is the only synergy I can think of offhand. That would have been interesting if Panasonic bought Olympus, right? I imagine they have the resources and the expertise to some extent. Does the shutter count go out first? No, not usually. Usually something else goes out first, in my experience. And with my limited experience, other things go wrong with the camera before the shutter does usually. But I haven't had any major failures of any cameras, but my EM10 Mark II is a good example because I've dropped it so many times. Other things are broken on it, but the shutter's fine. It still takes great pictures. How about batteries? Stock up or in store just in case? Oh, that's a good question. Really, you can only store batteries for about 4 or 5 years before they really start to lose their capacity anyway. And I think we're good for the next 4 or 5 years. So I would wait until the very last minute to buy Olympus original batteries. If there is a last minute, hopefully not. Hopefully that day will never come. There are things that can be done in an iPhone that can't be easily replicated with dedicated camera. I use both. Yes. I mean, I don't know about specific features because I don't use a camera phone at all. But definitely sharing images is 10 times easier with a cell phone, right? And there's a plethora of apps out there that I'm sure do lots of things too. So I still have my Fave E5. Yeah, the E5. Good system. Like I said, I really want to get that an E310 with the Kodak sensor in it. Remember Apple in the 90s? Not really. In another stream, I talked about why I don't buy Apple products. I won't go into it again, but yeah, I don't really buy Apple. Robin in his video on Silent Shutter said EM102 is rated for 100,000. Okay. I'm sure I'm close to that on mine. And then Wolf, these are really old comments because I haven't talked about Nikon for a few minutes. But if you're already a Nikon shooter, you have no worries with the FTC adapter. At least then they try to tell us, yeah. It's Tone, not Tony. Olympus did a new sensor. What would it be like? Oh, I would imagine, you know, maybe 30 megapixels. But I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't really see the need for more than 20. And going to 30, if they can do it without losing any noise performance, that would be nice. Still have the iPhone 5, but still for some shots, I assume from what I saw, the newer iPhones are really good. Yep. I'm going to try and catch up. I think the new Pen F will still create huge interest if properly executed. Yes, definitely. I mean, until Olympus is really profitable again, whatever the new owners, whoever they are, Olympus or Jip, the company has to be extremely profitable, I think, to you know, to squeeze out another Halo camera like the Pen F was. You got to remember the Pen F came out, I think, in 2016 or 2017, again, shortly after what I think was the pinnacle of Olympus cameras. And they were fat with research and investment money, and that's how the Pen F came out. So that's the only way another one's going to come out again. Yeah, Pro Controls now on iPhones. Okay. Hate the way smartphone pictures are highly noise compensated. Yeah, they're a little bit soft. Not soft, but mushy, right? Sometimes. I mean, they look great. They're fine, but when you punch in and pixel peep, yeah, you can see there's some mushiness there. Harking back to the Bugle song, cell phones killed the digital camera. Huh. Most people don't appreciate quality, hence the problem with cell phones for photography. Well, you know, in the US market, I think it's definitely there's a value for money proposition is the most important thing, right? So we like to quantify features like megapixels and shutter speed and ISO noise and feature sets and things like that. So there's a checklist and we quantify that, and then we look at the price, right? And we want the most bang for the buck. And you know, a camera is really more than the sum of its parts. You know, you really have to hold and feel it and use it and just to really appreciate it. But there's very few people like that, I think, that will really appreciate what a true camera can do, regardless of brand. I just happen to like Olympus. And that's my feeling for the US market is we're more of a very pro value for dollar type consumer, looking for most bang for the buck and not really appreciating the finer qualities that a manufacturer is trying to pass on, right, to the consumer. And you know, there's examples of this across products, but definitely the US is not as appreciative, I think, of certain qualities that manufacturers have to offer, and Olympus is one of them. Good old E500, huh? Yeah, the Kodak CCD. So the E500 used the Kodak too. That's good to know. Dang it, I lost my place again. I'm gonna have to scroll down. Levine, okay. Levante is looking for upgrades. Yeah, EM5 Mark III is definitely the update. Rob, what is the upgrade path for EM10 II and how for the next few years, lenses and bodies? Oh, I feel like I've answered this question. But EM5 Mark III or EM1 Mark II or 3 in the next few years. But that you have a pretty good timeline. That's a pretty long timeline if you're talking about a few years. If you're talking about today, EM5 III. If you're talking about a few years, you'd have to ask me in a few years. Oh, okay, Bob, you were asking on behalf of others. Yeah. Well, you know, Bob, you would give just as good advice as I do. Batteries decay sitting in storage, so it's not a good idea to stock them up. Yeah. And there's always the potential for third-party batteries to continue making them. That's true. Even though they'll never be as good as the originals. I'd rather take a 3-year-old original than a brand new OEM if I chose. I don't have to make that choice right now. Roman said, I wonder what happens when the lenses, if no Micro Four Thirds camera is produced, since it is the smallest sensor, it cannot be adapted to other formats. They'll just go away. Just like think about the Pentax. They had a small format interchangeable lens camera based on the 1/2 sensor, right? They made lenses for that. So you don't have to guess. You can see what happened with the Pentax. They just stopped making lenses for it. And then once the stock dries up, you just have to go to the used market. If Olympus and Panasonic had a baby, they would Have Ollie color science and awesome video with autofocus. Yep. I bought two EM10 Mark IIIs, gave the EM10 II to my son, then bought the EM5 Mark III, and that is better than me, the EM5 Mark II. Yes, I agree. The EM5 Mark III is better than the EM5 Mark II. If the mechanical shutter dies, you can go on using the electronic shutter. Assuming the camera will let you. I don't know if the mechanical shutter stops working, if the whole camera shuts down. If it even knows that the mechanical shutter is not working. I would imagine the mechanical shutter not working would trigger something that says there's a fault in the camera, you can't use it. But I don't know. Yeah, lenses are compatible with Panasonic for future upgrades, but yeah, so you don't necessarily lose your investment, you know, as long as there's someone still making Micro Four Thirds. But you'll be able to buy Olympus cameras for a long time, either new or on the used market. New Olympus should focus on implementing AI software tech in their cameras. Maybe. I didn't see any AI type companies in their portfolio now. They have, like I said, they have Hitachi, NEC, they have a bunch of consulting companies, business productivity type companies. But yeah, smartphone I didn't see. I mean, the Sony Vaio is a good asset to draw from for app type tech, but I don't know. Because they were talking about releasing Sony cell phones or Vaio cell phones, but that never came to be. Do putting lithium batteries in the freezer work? I doubt it. I've never heard anyone tell me to put my batteries in their fridge. Film, yeah, but lithium batteries, I haven't heard anything like that. It's never been advised. With that said, it's never been ill-advised that I know of, but I've never heard anyone advise me to put batteries in the fridge. Higher pixels mean more noise. Potentially, yes. With the current camera technology, that is the case, yes. But they could tweak the camera technology, not that so that they could increase the megapixel count without increasing the noise. I mean, you know, it's really a big can of worms here, right? Because now we're talking about well depth, and you know, there's a lot of internal camera things that generate noise. So you have a noise floor you have to contend with. But rule of thumb, yeah, you're right. Higher pixel means more noise. From what we know, do you think new cameras will still use the Olympus trade name? Yes. They definitely want to keep the Olympus and the Zuiko name. That's the most valuable thing of the Olympus company, are the brand names, the goodwill and names, Olympus and Zuiko. And until they start cranking out crap products with that name on it, you know, we'll see. Like I said, a lot of companies sold off their name, their trade names only. They didn't sell the manufacturing with all the employees and everything together with it. They just sold the name off and liquidated the assets. Versus what Olympus is doing is selling or moving the entire thing under new ownership. And the new company, the investment company, is, as far as I can tell, because people say, oh, they're known for, you know, making companies better and successful. So I checked. I said, well, let's see. They bought Sony Vaio in 2014. How are they doing? They bought Hitachi and NEC, or a piece of NEC, back in 2016 or so. You know, when I looked at the portfolio, how are they doing? Oh, they're doing fine. They bought some clothing companies, a restaurant company, or a food company. They all seem to be doing fine, at least from what I can see online visibly. Their websites are, you know, they're not skeleton sites. They're fully fleshed out with mission statements about us, products that they offer, and services. So, you know, the companies that I was able to find any information on were all solid. So that gives me a lot of hope for Olympus, that they really want to make something of Olympus. And I don't think Olympus would just hand their baby over to anybody, you know. So I think they all have a vested interest in carrying on the Olympus legacy and making it you know, a bigger success than it's ever been by giving us what we want, right? What's a halo camera? Halo camera is like a camera that is like sort of the pinnacle of their research and development efforts, right? So this is the camera that is the end all be all of, or the very best that they can do, and they put it out there not with the intent that it's going to sell well, but they put it out there because they know they can, right? Because they can, not just because they think it's going to be a market success. So to me, the Pen F was kind of like their halo camera to say, look at what we can do. Look at this beautiful camera we made. And that's subjective, but you know, no screws in it and has all these features, and you can dial in this, and it really, so that's kind of like that. Another example would be Mazda, right? Their halo car really is the Miata. You know, they don't have to make that Miata. They only sell like 5,000 or 6,000 a year. It's like just a, it doesn't, you know, it's just a small little car for them. It's not any kind of volume production, but they continue to produce that car because they have a commitment, right, to making a truly a true sports car, regardless of sales. And to me, that's where the Pen F fits. The Pen F is kind of like the Miata of Mazda. It's their halo vehicle. You don't, you know, you don't buy Mazda. Or what I meant to say is, when you buy a Mazda, you want to buy their Miata, right? They have a lot of other nice cars, but for me, you buy Mazda. If you buy Chevrolet, you buy their Corvette. So there's certain halo products that really don't fit the general business sense, but they make them because they can. The sensor question was good. I think Olympus and Lumix use the same sensor. The difference is in the programming. I believe Sony's the manufacturer of the sensor. It's the IMX270 or something. There's part numbers for them that I've been able to find. Sometimes there's slight differences between the sensors. Like the sensor's exactly the same, but they put, you know, phase detect on the Olympus ones, and they just put, you know, contrast detect only on the Panasonics. So there's slight differences there. A little bit different in the micro lenses that they put on, but even though the part numbers may be a little different, they're essentially the same sensor. Pen F would have been a great halo camera, but they needed to update the inners, maybe like the M5 III. Yeah, if they put the M5 III guts into the Pen F2, I would buy one in an instant, definitely. I mean, they need to do more than that, though. I mean, they really need to update the software side with the color wheel to not only adjust saturation, but hue and luminance as well, like you can do in Olympus Workspace. Then I would jump on it in a heartbeat, because I like to do a lot of stuff in camera in the field. Bob says, I've had 5 Miatas here in the UK. It's not Halo, it's the M1 Mark III. Yes. My cat is watching me change a ton of batteries while I look while he's doing. Yep. Honda NSX is the Halo. The S2000 is great too. Yes. S2000 is another one of those Halo cars, right? I think the intent was to actually make it a marketable car, but they went overboard and made it too good, to the point that it was kind of pushed it out of the consumer market, like out of consumers' reach. And you know, that's one of those cars I made too good, I think. And that's why it didn't sell. It's kind of ironic, but that's why it's very sought after now, right? Do you think that Nikon Z50 is using the Olympus sensor? No, it's using an APS-C sensor. Frank, I'm sure the Z50 is using an APS-C sensor from Sony. Not a 4/3. My kitty picked me up at the shelter. Okay, so if I missed any questions, please ask them again now, because I'm caught up now, and there's so many comments. It's too hard for me to find any that I missed at this point. So I don't normally have this many people. I'm really flattered. You guys are awesome. But hopefully I brought you're sharpening your knives in the house, huh? With a whetstone. I use a metal sheath for mine. It's faster. I don't need it like more than razor sharp, because you know, when it's too sharp I make too many mistakes, just like I drop my cameras when I'm chopping my onions and stuff. The Z50 has gotten great reviews so far, except Northrop. Who cares? But who cares? Okay, I think the Z50, yeah, it's a fine camera. You know, it doesn't have IBIS, and I think that's the only thing that would really keep me from buying it. I'd rather just buy a full frame if I'm not going to get IBIS. But Nikon makes fine cameras, and I might revisit them, you know, one day. I'm just not ready to invest in a whole nother mounting system, a Z-mount system. My mom, you know, that's a good point, Lauren. I left my phone out there, so she may have been calling. I don't know. That's not good. I should bring it in here. Which zoom lenses should I get next to the primes that will serve me good on EM5 III? Oh, definitely the 40-150 f2.8 Pro, and then maybe add the 1.4 teleconverter, and then the 300mm f4 Pro. You know, it's a chunk of change, right, for either of those lenses, but you can usually find a good deal on them in certified refurbished market. So definitely look out for them. I've seen that the 40-150 go for like $1,000 with discounts and things, refurbished on Olympus's website. They might have it right now for like $1,100, which is a smoking hot deal for a lens like that. I used to have a brilliant Vio super lightweight notebook which docked at the base. Yeah, Sony made good laptops, but they missed the marketing side of it. Roman says, I meant earlier, how can people use their micro four thirds lenses on other cameras like APS-C? Or the MFT on lens was unusable? Oh, yeah, that's definitely a problem. It's all about the image circle that comes out of the 4/3 lenses not being big enough. Now there may be a lens here and there where the image circle is big enough to use on APS-C, but the challenge is adapting, finding an adapter that works. You know, I don't know if there'd be any market for someone to make an adapter that would let you adapt a 4/3 lens to, say, Nikon Z mount, because the flange distance on the Z mount is a little bit shorter than the micro 4/3, so it'd be like a little ring. It'd be a very thin ring that you put on to adapt it, and then the image circle. But there's definitely a problem with the image circle, so I doubt it'll ever be made. The 12-100 f4, then the 7-14 f2.8. I'm not a big fan of the 12-100 because of the size and weight. So I never recommend that lens because of the size and weight, especially on EM5 Mark III. Not that the 300 f4 is a small lens, But the 12 to 100 is the kind of lens you take with you everywhere, versus the 40 to 150 and the 300 you take out with a specific purpose, right? And a take everywhere lens should not weigh as much as the 12 to 100 does, in my opinion. And the 7 to 14, the same thing. I'd wait for an 8 to 25 f4 if it comes out. That's what I'm waiting for. Some great secondhand bargains coming from people who panicked about the Olympus sale. I hope so. Randy says the 12 to 40. 12 to 40 is a good lens. Do many people actually sell their cameras? Yeah, definitely. Ask Peter Forsgaard, man. When he went Olympus, he dumped everything Canon. He got rid of it. I don't know if Robin ever shot. I think he said he shot Canon before. It's gone. You know. Jimmy's a little bit more like me. He kind of hangs on to stuff. I don't know if he hung on to his Canon stuff or not, but yeah. Oh, Sergey likes his 7 to 14 2.8. Yeah, that's a good lens. I mean, I don't need an f2.8 when I'm going that wide. I think an 8 to 25 would be a little bit better. Even the 9 to 18 is a better fit for me. Very small, light, compact. Like I have a 7 to 14 f4 from Panasonic, which is, you know, pretty compact. Only 300 grams or less, maybe 250. Is a 12 to 40 at 700 euros a good deal? It's fair. You're not getting ripped off, but that's fair. If it's brand new, that's a fair deal. I wouldn't pay more than that ever. If you can pay less than that, I would. I would try to pay less than that if you can. But brand new, warranty and everything, that's a fair deal. Fair, not a smoking deal. The Canon M50 was a top-selling camera in Japan. It looks like a nice little camera by all accounts. I never handled one, so I can't say as to the handling and using it. But on paper, it looks like a fine camera. Just no IBIS, right? What would be a good used price for a 17 millimeter? The primes are all there. The wider the prime, the more expensive it gets. But a 17 millimeter f1.8, I bought mine for 250 bucks, you know, from the camera store used, you know. So that's a good used price for that one. And the 12 millimeter used around 350 to 400 used, because brand new they're about 500, so it's hard to find them much lower than that, even used, because it's a great little lens. 12 millimeter f2. Is the 17 f1.7 a good lens? Trying to find a good walk around lens. Yes, it's excellent. I think I'm familiar with the 17 1.8. I don't know about a 17 1.7. I'm not familiar with that lens. If I already have a 12 to 40 Pro, would it make any sense to get the 7 to 14? Not really, in my opinion. Going wide, I don't feel like you need a fast lens. I think you can get away with the 9 to 18 would make sense. A 9 to 18 would probably be better than a 7 to 14. The M5 is decent, but I dislike the lens selection. Yes, I've heard that. And Lauren says 250. So Lauren is backing up what I said. About 250 for a new 17 millimeter. Wow, if you can find it brand new for 250, that's killer. But I doubt it. Leaning towards a 12 to 45 f4 for size weight reasons, paired with the M5 Mark III and EM. Yeah, that looks like a nice lens. I don't own that one, so I can't say. And the few images I've seen from it are okay. But I haven't seen enough images directly from that lens to have really a strong opinion one way or the other. But all the other visionaries on YouTube seem to really like it. Okay, Rome, we'll see you later. Yeah, I need to be wrapping up here soon too. Yeah, the 12f2 is an awesome lens. Levante's chiming in saying, here she got the 17 f1.8 brand new for $370 with the tax included. Wow, that's smoking. I have no complaints about the 17mm sharpness. Wide open, it's a little bit soft. You know, just a tiny bit, but not enough for the kind of use that it's for, street photography. You don't need to be tack sharp, right? For what it's really meant for. And you stop it down to f4, you're definitely tack sharp. It's excellent. M50 had a nice grip. Okay. No IBIS. Yeah, it's a deal breaker. Thoughts on the Olympus 30mm f3.5? It's on sale at the moment. I would skip it personally. I mean, people use it for macro. But if you're going to do macro, I'd get the 60mm. Nothing wrong with the lens. It's perfectly fine 30mm dual purpose lens. You don't have to use it for macro, right? It makes a great, you know, standalone lens as well. But I think if you want to do macro, I'd go 60mm, definitely. Worth the extra few dollars or however much more it is. It's not a lot more. Yeah, 1240 Pro is excellent. I love it on my EM1s. Not a fan of it on anything else because of the size, but yeah, because it's a little clunky. You're a dude, okay. My dying eyes, I can't see. Got lucky the other day with a 35 to 100 f2.8. Nice. Wow, 450 pounds. That's a killer deal. The M10 taking pictures in full auto with 1600 ISO. Bought the M10 Mark III in the same location. ISOs go to 6400. Yes, there is a setting in the menu where you can adjust the auto ISO and the range you can select. So on, oh, where's my EM10? You want to go into menu. You want to go into the exposure menu. It's menu E on the Mark II. I don't know what it'd be on the Mark III. And then you see where it says ISO auto set, right here. You go into that menu and you can adjust the limits here like that. Oops. So check that. 12 to 200, a decent buy is a single travel lens. It's okay. I'm not a fan. I think the 14 to 150 is a better lens. The few images I've seen from the 12 to 200, I was not that impressed. And it's kind of a big, heavy lens. I would go 14 to 150 over the 12 to 200. Okay, Frank, we'll see you later. Thank you. Thank you for the coffee. All right, I'm gonna have to wrap it up here, guys and gals. Thanks, Bob. Guess the close working distance not great for insects and such. Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to start my next live stream, which is my photo editing live stream, where you submit your images for me to edit using Olympus Workspace. So it's a good exercise in learning how to use Olympus Workspace and then getting other people's perspectives on how they would edit a particular image. So you can join me in that. That starts in a few minutes. But everyone, thanks for joining me today. And like I said in the title here with Olympus, you know, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Time will tell. So we'll see you guys on Sunday for my normal live chat, or if you'd like to join me for the photo editing session, I'm going to start that in a few minutes. So thanks again for coming in. Yeah, the ruthless crops are coming in. That's right. I used to have an end screen. There it is.